Okay, so we're back in Luke, the 9th chapter. We're going to pick it back up at verse 52 again. Okay, Luke 9, verse 52. And sent messengers before his face, and they went and entered into a village of the Samaritans to make ready for him. So before Yahushua went through the city of Samaria, he sent his disciples before his face. All right, verse 53. And they did not receive him, because his face was as though he would go to Jerusalem. So now why did the Samaritans reject the disciples of Mashiach Yahushua? Was it because they were Ethiopians? I don't think so, because it all goes back to what we brought out in John the 4th chapter, what the woman told Yahushua in verse 9. Go back to John 4 and verse 9 again. It says, "Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria?" Right? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. So now, why would the Jews have no dealings with these Samaritans if these Samaritans were Israelites, which they were? All right? It goes back to, and then what we're finding out here in Luke, the 9th chapter, is that the Samaritans, which were the northern kingdom, had no dealings with the southern kingdom. That's what it was about. It wasn't because these Samaritans were Ethiopians. All right? It says back in Luke 9:53, and they did not receive him because his face was as though he would go to Jerusalem, because they saw that they were Jews of the southern kingdom. That's why they did not receive them. Now, listen to what happens next. Verse 54, and when his disciples, James and John, saw this, they said, Mashiach, wilt thou that we command fire to come down from heaven and consume them, even as Elijah did? So, when they saw this, James and John, they wanted to kill him. You know. But Yahushua says what? Verse 55. But he turned and rebuked them and said, Ye know not what manner of spirit ye are of. He said, you guys are of the spirit. Alright? Ye know not what manner of spirit ye are of. For the Son of Man is not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. Alright? So who was he talking about not destroying but saving? It had to be Israelites, because the only people he came on this earth to save was Israel. Alright? He's talking about these Samaritans. He didn't come to destroy them. He came to save them because they're Israelites of the northern kingdom. Alright? Look at this. This is Matthew chapter 18 and verse 11. It says, For the Son of Man is come to save that which was lost. Alright? So who did he come to save? The lost sheep of the house of Israel. Alright? The Ethiopians were not the lost sheep. They're not the lost sheep. These other nations are not the lost sheep. So Yahushua did not die for them. Okay? The people that these Samaritans were Israelites of the northern kingdom. It all goes back to the relationship. What was the relationship between the northern and the southern kingdom? When you go back to Kings and Chronicles. Let's go to 2 Chronicles chapter 20. Let's hit verse 13. Chapter 13. You can read this whole chapter because it's describing the battles and the warfare that the northern and the southern kingdom had with each other. All right, but I'm gonna just hit the main points, and you can read it yourself. I'll start at verse 15. 2 Chronicles 13 and verse 15. It says, Then the men of Judah gave a shout, and as the men of Judah shouted, when it says the men of Judah, it's talking about the southern kingdom. Okay? It says, and it came to pass that the Most High smote Jeroboam and all Israel before Abijah and Judah. So now Jeroboam was the king of the northern kingdom. Okay? But he said he smote all Israel, meaning the northern kingdom, before Abijah and Judah. Who was Abijah? Abijah was the king of the southern kingdom at this time. Okay? Verse 16. And the children of Israel fled before Judah. Okay? And the Most High delivered them into their hand. And Abijah and his people, meaning the southern kingdom, all right, slew them with a great slaughter, so that there fell down slain of Israel 500,000 chosen men that were put to death of the northern kingdom by hands of the southern kingdom. 500,000. That's a lot of brothers, you know. Now let's get the flip side of that. Go to the 28th chapter. And let's read about what the northern kingdom did to the southern kingdom. 2 Chronicles 28 And I'll start at verse 1. It says, Ahaz was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. But he did not that which was right in the sight of the Most High, like David his father. All right? For he walked in all the ways of the kings of Israel, and made also molten images for Baalim. All right? Moreover, he burnt incense in the valley of the son of Hinnom, and burnt his children in the fire, after the abominations of the heathen whom the Most High had cast out before the children of Israel. All right? Wicked Africans. All right? He sacrificed also and burnt incense in the high places. This is what he's talking about, what Ahaz had done. All right? He sacrificed also and burnt incense in the high places and on the hills and under every green tree. All right? Now verse 5. Wherefore the Most High, his power, delivered him into the hand of the king of Syria, meaning Ahaz and the southern kingdom, into the hand of Syria. All right? And they smote him and carried away a great multitude of them, a great multitude of the southern kingdom, all right, captives, and brought them to Damascus. And he was also delivered into the hand of the king of Israel, the northern kingdom, all right, who smote him with a great slaughter. So the northern kingdom smote the southern kingdom with a great slaughter. For Pekah, the son of Remaliah, which was the king of the northern kingdom at that time, it said, slew in Judah 120,000 in one day. So 120,000 men of the southern kingdom was put to death by the hand of the northern kingdom in one day. All right. So I mean, that's what was going on. Go to 1 Kings 15 in verse 6. It says, and there was war between Rehoboam, which was the king of the southern kingdom, and Jeroboam, which was the king of the northern kingdom, all the days of his life. Okay? So there was constant battle and warfare. That's why when you read these scriptures in the New Testament, it's talking about how the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans, and one we just read in Luke, where it says that the Samaritans did not receive the disciples of Christ, right? It's because that these were men of the northern, these people of the northern and the southern kingdom, all right, which had no dealings with each other. All right, let's go to another parable about who these Samaritans are. In Luke the 10th chapter, and we're going to start at verse 25. Now this is the Good Samaritan. All right, verse 25. It says, and behold, a certain lawyer stood up and tempted him, saying, Master, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? And he said unto him, what is written in the law? How readest thou? How do you understand the law? And he answering said, thou shalt love the Most High thy power with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and with all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself. Okay? Verse 28. And he said unto him, thou hast answered right. This do, and thou shalt live. Now listen what happens next. But he, willing to justify himself, this lawyer, said unto Yahushua, and who is my neighbor? Okay? So now, what happens next is Yahushua is going to answer him. The question he asks is, who is his neighbor? So he's going to answer him through this parable called the Good Samaritan. But before we do that, let's go to Leviticus, because it says he wants to know who his neighbor is. So the question I have is, who are the neighbors of the Israelites? Let's go to Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 17. All right? It says, thou shalt not hate thy brother in thine heart. Thou shalt in any wise rebuke thy neighbor, and not suffer sin upon him. Thou shalt not avenge nor bear any grudge against the children of thy people, but thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So who are the neighbors of the Israelites? Okay, when this is neighbor, it's not talking about your next door neighbor or, around the corner up the block. Their neighbor is your people. Okay? That's who his neighbors are. Okay? Now, going back to Luke. So Yahushua is giving him an example of who his neighbor is through this parable. We're going to pick it up on the next one.